Welcome to the Winner's Playbook. Every winner needs a game plan, and this one's for you. Disclaimer: the information contained in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into account your personal circumstances. Please head to the show notes if you wish to book in a free 15-minute call to discuss your personal situation.
Welcome back to the Winner's Playbook. This isn't just any episode, it's the first episode of 2025. And trust me, we're kicking off the year with some big changes. First up, we've got a fresh new dynamic in the studio. Whilst we'll all miss the legend that is Steve Sloane, don't worry, he will drop in from time to time. But taking a front seat this year is none other than Billy Norman. Billy's been on a podcast before, and if you follow finance content online, you've probably seen his killer videos. As a fellow financial advisor at Link Wealth Group, he brings a wealth of knowledge, a sharp perspective, and a knack for breaking down complex strategies into gold. Billy, mate, how's 2025 treating you so far?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Josh. We're early in the year, flat out. Outside of work, I'd say the main challenges, of course, is kids. And
I can relate to that now.
Yeah. Welcome to the club.
Yep.
Yeah, I've got a 4 and a 6-year-old, and so the main challenge has been 6-year-old deciding he doesn't want to go to school for his first week of grade 1.
Geez, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that?
I don't know. You're just guessing. You're just trying stuff and hoping something will work.
Yeah. Wow, that's troubling. That's probably more troubling than anything you're experiencing at the office or the business at the moment, isn't it? I would assume.
Yeah, definitely far more challenging.
Yeah, mate, that's a tough gig. Well, yeah, I can actually, relate to that now. Leon just passed 3 months old last week, and it's all going well. The first thing everyone always asks me is like, how's sleep going? Like, how's all of that? And I'm very happy to say that I'm sleeping very good. My wife's amazing. She does all the feeding and actually lets me kind of keep a very similar routine. I must say I'm definitely more conscious of my time now though, and I'm a bit more stricter on the hours that I'm doing, in terms of, in the past, I probably just kind of did a bit of what I want and didn't really sort of fuss around getting home at certain times, which is not great. I know that. So I'm not perfect there, but definitely now a bit more conscious of just that balance between work, life, business, friends and family, and trying the best as I can juggle those and make them all work, of which I don't think anyone can ever do perfectly.
No, it's never perfect. It's just constantly a balancing act.
Yeah, which we'll all get better at. But today's podcast, guys, we're going to do a bit of an intro session for Billy, because all of last year you would have just heard mostly from Steve and myself. So you already know a lot about us and our background and a bit of the journeys and upbringing and business life, etc. But before we get right into the year, we're going to do a similar thing with Billy today and just have a bit of a casual conversation around what got him into advice, some of the key reflections, what he's doing as an advisor, clients he's working with, and just kind of take it from there. So Billy, if we just kick it off, mate, just tell us a bit about the journey and why did you get into financial advice in the first place?
It's an interesting question, because most advisors did not, in high school, they didn't decide I'm going to be a financial advisor, because it's this weird career where most people don't really know it exists. Hopefully that's changing now. There's more of a pathway these days, but there didn't used to be. So most people, I fell into it. Yeah, like when I was 19, I started studying IT at university. And I found that to be quite dry and not what I was expecting, like just too much coding, and I just found it a bit boring, to be honest. I started working with Dad in an accounting business, and they were doing some financial advice there. And as soon as I saw what was happening there, that's where that piqued my interest straight away. Started following markets and thought, no, I want to do this stuff, not IT.
Yeah.
So that's how it all started.
So you could have been a possible Steve Jobs or like Elon Musk in the making if you didn't come into advice. Is that what we're saying? Or?
Well, it's funny because that was back in like 2001 or 2002. I got into that IT course, and that was off the back of the internet boom, right, in the late 90s. Yes. And I got in. It was hard to get into this course. Like, you needed a high score. Yeah. And I'm still following it was like 35 of us in this IT course. So we all got pretty tight for the 2 years I was there. Mm-hmm. And I still follow them on LinkedIn, and they're all like have incredible careers in
Any tech billionaires in there, or what's happening?
Maybe not billionaires, but very successful people. So certainly it would have, financially, it certainly would have paid off to stick with it. But obviously it just didn't. I didn't take to it, so yeah.
Well, it's also, I think, worthy of talking about. Like, people don't actually understand where the financial planning industry actually came from. And like, it actually really grew out of the, the old insurance data, door-to-door salesman. Do you want to maybe like touch a little bit on that, like where financial planners come into it? And I think there is then a bit of a stigma and things that we do deal with every now and then, not so much now, I would say, but I'd probably say in 2019, 2020, there was still a lot of, confusion around what an advisor does. And are they just selling products? Are they just here to get a commission? And, you've been in the industry a lot longer than I have. So you've seen more of that sort of transition. And I think to where we are now, and mind you, there's still advisors that operate in a very old school fashion, but I think the way that we give advice at a Link Wealth Group, it's incredibly holistic and what true financial advice is in my eyes. But what about just the actual industry? Like, what have you seen over the years? And insurance salesmen to advisors, like what's been a bit of that?
Yeah, remarkable change. Like it was born from life insurance sales. So like your old school, like door-to-door salesman trying to get you to buy a life insurance policy.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it's nothing like that at all these days. It's become a real profession.
Yep.
So there was still a lot of that element when I started out, for sure. There was a lot of life insurance sales and like super fund sales. Like often advisors were tied to a particular super fund. So the more clients they got into that super fund, the better they did as a business. So it was like that. Really until we had the GFC, the global financial crisis, and that exposed that a lot of these investment products that were being sold, a lot of them weren't very good. Then we had the Royal Commission into banking, and now we're in a position where it's seen as a true profession, because it takes you at least 5 years to become an advisor now. Like you got to do a 3-year degree, postgrad study, national exam, professional year, which we have PY candidates at Link Wealth. So it takes you at least 5 years to become an advisor now, which is awesome. And that's why, like, I'm more excited about this now than I've ever been. And I've been sort of in and around it for 20 years now.
Yeah.
So great for us and great for clients, that change that's happened over time.
Yeah, I've actually seen a couple of clients. I remember a few years ago, I seen a couple of clients that I think they taken out an old insurance, like whole of life policy. It was like back in like the 1950s or 60s, I think. And they had this old scroll that looked like it was written in old like feather ink or something. And they actually still had it. I remember taking a photo of it. I'd be able to dig it up somewhere. But yeah, a lot of people don't know that's actually where the industry came out of. And that's where sometimes people do get a little confused in thinking that an advisor is just here to sort of flog me a product or give me some insurance so I can get some commissions. And unfortunately, I still do see some advisors just doing that, but there's a lot more to it. And in the past as well, there was commissions built into people's super funds. There was exit fees if you left, and then after Royal Commission, all of those things got wiped out of the actual industry. So there's definitely a lot of positives that have come through all of that regulation. And I can even talk to a bit of my own journey. When I joined the industry in 2017, I got a diploma, which took me, I think, 6 months, maybe less to do. And then I was designated as an advisor, and I am happy to say I knew nothing. So, back then the barrier to entry, the barrier to entry was literally nothing. And within 6 months, I was designated as an advisor. And at the prior firm I was working at was where I was designated. It kind of made me think like something doesn't seem right here. Like I don't know anything, and I'm now an advisor. And I'm supposed to go out and speak to people about their finances. Like I knew nothing. So I think there was definitely parts of the Royal Commission that had to happen. And as you alluded to, the professional year structure, which is kind of like an apprenticeship basically to become an advisor, I think is a great way of doing it, because they've had to have done their degree, so they've got a minimum level of education, and then they go through that apprenticeship structure, which we have, I think, probably one of the bigger ones in Australia. I'd say we've got a purpose-built academy for it, and that's generally 12 to 18 months sort of minimum of out of uni in this program. And if you excel, you could be an advisor at that point in time, and you're fully capable to give advice to virtually anyone, even if you're in your 20s. Like if you've gotten through that, you've succeeded. You could be advising high net worth clients, everyday retirees, mums and dads, business owners, you name it, because you've seen a lot in that short journey. And we service as a business a lot of different clients as well, which is worthy of mentioning. We don't just specialize in a high net worth market or just business owners. We have mum and dads, business owners, CEOs, retirees, everyone there and in between. So it's quite broad in that respect.
Yeah, that's it. The main thing I probably realized or really came to terms with the last few years is it doesn't matter how much study you do, how much technical knowledge you have, how well you understand products and building portfolios and all that stuff. Like, you need to know that stuff, but that's not actually what good financial advice is. Good financial advice is managing client relationships and helping them navigate through their lives, helping them with key decisions, all of those sorts of things. Those are massive. And that's, in my opinion, that's what separates out the incredible advisors from the okay advisors.
Yeah, totally. And if you have all this, it's great having all this knowledge in your mind and being the most technical advisor. But if you actually can't explain that to a client and get them to actually take the action that they need to do in their life, it's just wasted knowledge. It doesn't serve anyone any purpose whatsoever. And that's where we talk a lot about the soft skills being so important in terms of becoming an advisor, managing people's emotions. And it's a tricky job. It definitely is. But if we move on to, I'm sure there's a lot of ways you could answer this one, but like one big money lesson you wish people more understood. There's plenty going around. If you were to try and summarize it into one, what do you think it would be?
Yeah, I think it is understanding the difference between getting rich slow and getting rich quick. And like the personal accountability, like the things you need to do personally if you want to get into a strong financial position. And it's not investing, like it's not picking the right investments or, seeing the best advisor. I mean, they will help you allocate your cash flow or allocate your assets, but a lot of it's on you to like grow your income and better yourself. And then getting wealthy from there is about then deploying that income into assets over time. So there's this huge misconception that like, I just don't have the right super fund or I don't have the right investment. And that's not the key thing. So it's understanding the role of investing in the wealth creation journey and the difference between getting rich slow and getting rich quick. So like, how do you get rich quick? It's essentially you got to start a business or something like that. Yeah. You can't do it just by buying the right stock or buying the right property or something like that. So I think understanding how those things play into each other is one of the main lessons I think a lot of people don't quite understand.
Yeah, I think that's great. Like it's,
what do you think? Is that what what do you think about that?
I know, I totally agree. We speak to so many people all the time and there's no just one size fits all. And there's not just a simple formula of invest into this product or like you said, buy this property. There's a lot more that goes to it. And I did a video earlier in the day in terms of just, reflecting on a bit of my own journey and what's kind of helped me kind of be successful in my own sort of opinion, I suppose, because there's always people the one thing I should always say is you don't compare yourself to anyone. Like I compare myself to myself and I'm competing against myself. There's always going to be someone out there that's got bigger, better things than you. So if you're trying to do that, that's going to really mess with your psyche and mindset into the future. But one thing that's definitely helped me in terms of just building wealth and managing money is, not trying to be a jack of all trades and be like a master of one. And like I said, I did a video on it. I haven't put it out on social media yet, but I did it this morning. And I just became hyper-focused very early on and getting great at my craft. And when I figured out what financial planning truly was, I just lived it. I just did it every single day and just engulfed myself in it and just you probably never fully master it, but I think I got good pretty quick. And then through that allowed me to build wealth in my own life and then get into business and create wealth through that and then do that with all of my clients as well. And another one I would say is not being a DIY. So everyone usually starts on their journey, tries to DIY it all themselves and do everything. And I tell the clients to this all the time, you can DIY to an extent, but where again, my life changed, like a pivotal sort of inflection point was when I started to actually outsource things in my life and pay a good accountant some money to do stuff for me every single year, even though I have an accounting degree and I do understand most of it, using a buyer's agent to help me buy property, engaging with a business consultant through the business. So I can say that's when my life changed, when I started spending more money on other people to help me get further ultimately in life. But again, becoming hyper focused on kind of one thing and one niche and not trying to do too many different things or just following the trends and always trying to do that next craze that everyone's seeing out there. I just stuck to my lane and still am. And that's basically what I do. So yeah, that's what I'd add there, Billy.
Yeah, I agree. And I did the same thing, but I took 20 years, whereas you took about 6 or 7, I think.
Everyone's on a different path, aren't they? So
Yeah, mine was a different. Everyone's path is different, but
yeah,
when I was thinking about that question, I was thinking about that too. Like just
yeah,
really focusing on one thing, getting really, really good at that, and doing the
yeah.
reps. And not worrying too much about money in the early days of that, because
Mm-hmm.
it's yeah, if you yeah, it's that persistence thing. Like if you stick to it, all of a
Yep.
sudden you're gonna start to have these breakthroughs, and it,
Yep.
it can be massive. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the money comes, and like when I entered the industry, I was in a trade at that time, and my salary halved, but I just wanted to learn, and I was willing to learn and take that cut. But I knew the money would come. Like I knew if I did it for long enough and I pushed hard enough, I ultimately knew the money would come. But if we lead into that, what about a bit of your own personal approach to just managing money, building wealth? How does the Billy Norman household do it?
Yeah, so again, I've made mistakes and had ups and downs and all that sort of stuff. But where I sit with this now is it ties into the previous question. Like focus on yourself, like bettering yourself and honing in on that one thing and
Yep.
getting good at it. Because if you keep doing that, your income will go up, right? And then once it goes up, then you start to feed that income into assets and investments
Mm.
and build wealth that way. The other element is taking calculated risks when the
Yep.
time is right. And
Yep.
for me personally, that's been the first one has been buying into becoming a shareholder in our business,
Hmm.
which required me to borrow a lot of money and negotiate into that.
Yep.
That's to me, that's a big long-term investment for my family, which is very, very calculated. And, on maybe not a smaller scale, but something that most people can do. You can do that with property too, right? A
Yep.
calculated risk. You're borrowing a lot of money from the bank,
Yep.
but that can move the dial significantly over time, taking a few of those, making those big investments.
Yep.
And then, so you've got those foundations, right? It might be ownership in a business, a property. Obviously, you want money in the stock market. We all know we all know that. Then you're just focusing on your ability to earn an income and slowly build up those assets over time.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And the key
To me,
part you
that's
kind of
long-term wealth creation, and that's for in my case for my family and my children and all of those things, all of those
yeah.
reasons.
And I think like what you're kind of alluding to there as well, like a lot of the investing does generally require a bit of leverage, and leverage meaning
Yeah,
taking on debt to buy into a business or buy property. You're usually taking on debt to do those types of things, and that's what I would say. Like I'm definitely heavy in that wealth accumulation phase, and I'm not afraid of using leverage. I probably go a bit more aggressive than I would for some of my clients, but that's my own situation. Like everyone's got a risk tolerance and a risk profile, and you got to be able to balance and manage that efficiently. But everything I speak to my clients about, I tell them very openly. Everything that I'm going to tell you guys to do or to implement, I'm doing it myself. So like if I'm talking to clients that it makes sense to actually leverage and buy an investment property or do something around property, well, yeah, I do that myself. Like I do have multiple properties. I've got exposure to multiple businesses that I'm running with Steve, and obviously the other shareholders like yourself, Billy. Everything that I preach to my clients, I basically do it myself. So I also do like to tell clients that, if you're ever getting advice from someone, you want to get it from someone that doesn't necessarily they haven't just learned it at uni, but they are actually applying these things in their own life as well. And that's why I call that like a bit of a real teacher. So, everything I tell my clients to do, I'm virtually doing it myself. So I tell them I'm in the trenches as well, so to speak. So, but of course there is a longer term, vision. I'm certainly nowhere near where I want to be in future. Got big goals, big aspirations. So, in a way, the journey that I set my clients on, like I'm on the same journey in my own right, and we're all on a different journey, as of course, in terms of trying to figure out where we want to be and how we want to get there.
exactly. And that's our job with clients, is to understand their journey, where they're at, what they want to do, because not everyone wants to buy a business, and nor should
Totally.
you. Not everyone wants to go and invest in properties either. So that might look a bit different, but yeah, just
Totally.
building the foundations and yeah, just slowly building on that over time, I think. And then if you want to accelerate it, then you're probably going to use some of the bank's money as well.
Yep, leverage, use or OPM, other people's money. That's one of my favorite terms,
Yeah.
OPM, other people's money. But what about if we talk to mistakes? It's always a bit of a hard one, but can you like talk on one financial mistake? Like what stands out in your mind if someone says like, what's the biggest one? How could I avoid doing that or learn from it? What do you tell clients?
Yeah, the biggest mistake, I mean, like I said, my journey was a long one to get to this point, but I wouldn't call that a mistake because that's just how things played out, you
Sure.
know.
Yeah.
But in terms of what we see with clients, is certainly leaving it too late. And I don't mean, you need to go and acquire properties and buy businesses in your 20s, but I mean, like, we see clients that are 60 plus and they
Yep.
haven't paid any attention to their finances or their planning whatsoever,
Yep.
and they realized, hang on, I actually don't or can't work full time forever, and they're not in a good position to have financial freedom.
Yep.
So it's burying your head in the sand for too long is the is the biggest thing I see, I think. Yeah, and that's really common in Australia.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, DIYing is also one I see a lot. Like that's, I think,
Yes.
one of the biggest risks, trying to do it all yourself. All of the wealthy clients I know have like a great team around them, advisor, accountant, broker, maybe a lawyer in some respects as well. But if I also talk to, like, one of the biggest mistakes I tend to see is, like, generally people I see out there that are earning more money, they just tend to spend more money and they lose the grasp of their lifestyle and, lifestyle creep. I talk about it a lot on social media. As much as the earnings and you keep increasing your income, if you can't actually get a grasp of your cash flow and managing your lifestyle, if you're earning $1 million, you could still be quite easily spending all of that million you're earning on an after-tax basis. So the just getting a lot of income into the household doesn't generally change the equation. I caught up with a client yesterday, and combined they would be earning, gross circa $700,000, and it took a long time for these guys to really get a grasp of their cash flow. And it sounds crazy when people hear that they weren't saving money, but they were not saving money until they met me. And now they are, like, they're investing steadily at least 10 grand a month. It's a lot of money, but again, there's a lot of money coming into that household. But yeah, well, I think one of the biggest mistakes, I think, is people kind of fall into, they have sort of false sense of security, maybe in a bit of a way of that they're just earning these good dollars, so that naturally if they just keep doing that, they're going to build wealth. But that's like, they're not actually doing anything with their money. The money's coming in, money's going out, and they're not actually building anything up material behind them, which I do see that one a lot. I don't know if you see that too often as well, Billy.
A lot, yeah. And look, I'm nowhere near perfect on this. When I earn more money, I spend a bit more, take a few more holidays.
Yep.
But where I think it's the trap that I don't want to fall into, and where I see a lot of people falling into it with lifestyle creep, is the big ticket items. And I mean, like, bigger house, car leases, private school, like those big numbers that you're locking yourself into. That comes back to, like, delayed gratification and also trade-offs. So just because you're earning a really big salary, it doesn't mean you should be doing all of those things.
Yes, true.
Like, like, you need to run the numbers on it, and decide what's actually important and have some of those trade-off conversations. And sometimes with clients, we'll be blunt because they'll come in and say, I feel like I have no money. And then you look at their balance sheet and what they're doing, and they've got all of those things.
Yes.
And it's just, okay, we've got 3 kids in private school and 2 car leases and a $2 million home loan. Do we need all of these things?
Yes.
Right. And if the kids' schooling is probably the important one, all right, do we need to move house? Do we need to sell a car? It's just making some big, tough calls there.
It's a great point you raise, and that's why I tell clients openly up front that if you're going to get some advice and get on a journey with us, it's generally going to require you getting out of your comfort zone. And for that reason, financial advice isn't for everyone, because it like you said, it's sometimes we've got to confront these realities with clients, and a lot of things that they're maybe putting their head in the sand and just kind of kept aside. They know that they're not doing right. They don't want to sort of confront, and that's a part of our job, is to really bring everything to the surface and help them change their life. But yeah, for some reason, for some clients, that's something they don't actually want to do, and they're happy staying in their comfort zone, and therefore they know they could be doing more, but they just don't want to do it. That's okay. Don't judge people at all, but everyone's each to their own, ultimately, in a way. What about you're new to the podcast, Billy? What are the listeners expecting from Billy Norman coming on the podcast? What sort of hot takes or finance topics? What are you bringing to the equation, mate? Give us a bit of sauce there.
Yeah, good question. Like, I love podcasts. I listen to a lot of stand-up comedians,
Yep.
And I listen to some finance podcasts as well. So it depends
Yep.
how serious I want to be with my podcast listening. So I do have a lot of ideas. I've been wanting to do this for a while. I think the main thing, like a lot of the best podcasts, it's often about the guests too. Right. So we can talk about financial planning and markets and stuff all day.
Yep.
But I'm excited to bring some guests in and get some different perspectives and
sure.
just have really good conversations.
For sure.
And for us to learn, and obviously also for the audience as well.
So
I'm excited to see where it goes. I just want to see it evolve over time, really. Yeah.
Yeah. What are your top podcasts? I did see, obviously you did do a video over the break on that, but tell the listeners what are some of your favorites? Maybe give us a finance one and then a non-finance podcast. What are your top two there?
Finance. Yeah. So there's a couple of great American financial advisors who I love called Michael Kitces and Carl Richards. And Michael Kitces is like the real tech guy, like the really technical tax investment guy. And then Carl Richards is the like money psychology feelings guy. And they do a podcast together about financial advice and delivery of advice. So I get some great info out of that. If I want to listen to something a bit more mind numbing, then I'll be some of my favorite stand-up comics, like Theo Von. And actually, funnily enough, Theo Von interviewed Dave Ramsey the other day, who's a famous money guy. So that was fascinating.
Yes. Interesting.
How about yourself? What do you? I know you listen to a lot.
Yeah, like I do more audio books a lot. But yeah, if I'm going podcasts, like Joe Rogan, probably my number one. But I'm very selective of what I listen to because there is a lot of crap that sometimes he gets on. But I just like listening to certain parts, and that not all of that's not necessarily finance. And another one would be the PBD podcast or Patrick Bet-David. He does have a couple of good books. Yeah, he's got a couple of good books that I've read, and he's he was in the finance game. He was actually in the insurance game and scaled up a big sort of wealth advisory business and sold that for over $100 million. So he's got a pretty cool story. Came out of Iran, and up over in the US now, and is doing some great things and got an awesome company. So, but again, I'm quite selective of what I'm listening to there because sometimes there is a lot of junk. So I tend to sort of look on Spotify and see what they're talking about. I'm like, yeah, this guy's a bit of interest. If I look at some topics there, I am weirdly a bit fascinated with space. I've got this fascination about space and like ancient civilization. So people probably wouldn't know that about me. That's if I'm like just wanting to think about stuff not finance related, that's generally where my mind goes, is thinking about like who the hell built those pyramids, or what about the universe and all of that. So maybe in another life I could have been an astronaut. I don't know, Billy, but that's sometimes where my mind goes. I don't know about you. Is that anything of your interest or?
Maybe not space. No, I think I just find the whole concept overwhelming. The pyramid stuff's fascinating. Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah. But we got slightly off topic there, didn't we? But jumping back to it, giving one piece of financial advice everyone should follow. Now we've got to put a sort of caveat to that. In anything that we say on here, nothing actually is financial advice because we don't know anyone's circumstances. So nothing that we're saying should be perceived as financial advice. And anyone that ever wants to chat can come through and book in a chat with any of the advisors at the business. But look, what about if you were advising a young Billy Norman? What would be your best piece of advice, you think?
Like almost every person in Australia, I wish I'd found a way to buy a property early on because I didn't realize at the time you can do that and still do all the other things you want to do, right? Because you've got the rental income to fund it. That's a pretty standard one. But no, I wish I'd started sooner. I wish I had this only came from life experience, but I didn't understand the concept that like to get ahead or build wealth or whatever, it's really about focusing on yourself and your ability to earn an income. I was also, this is very common, like it's a bit closed-minded about like you have to follow this particular career path. And it takes time. And you jump on Seek and look for a new role that's pays slightly more than the one you've got now. I didn't realize you can actually be far more open-minded about where your career can go, and it just involves thinking outside the box and talking to a lot of people. So probably just being a bit more open-minded around where I could take myself, I guess, is probably the thing I'd wish I'd done a little bit differently.
I think does some of that lead into a bit of like kind of, you know, who you surround yourself with as well, and like, you know, friends and just who you're kind of consuming, you know, information with or sharing information with? Because I can say one thing of my own life is when my life changed is when I stopped hanging around people that weren't on the same journey as me, and just, yeah, life took off in a totally different direction. And I see that a lot of, you know, who you surround yourself with can have a massive effect on your future, your beliefs and your mindset. And, you know, if you've got a victim's mindset, where you generally probably hang around people that are always like blaming the government, like interest rates, why are they so high? Like the government's making my life hell. Why do I have to pay taxes? That's stuff you don't want to be around. Like, that's toxic. And if you have people around you like that, well, it's probably going to rub off in your own life and mess with your mindset. I can talk for my own, you know, situation in the past. That's where life changed for me. Would you agree in a way?
I still hang around with my high school mates, and one or two of them might listen to this. So no, I don't agree.
Don't shoot it. Don't call it out.
But I can definitely apply that to your workplace, like workplace culture. Totally. I've worked in some businesses where it wasn't a positive culture. Sure. And you end up being closed-minded, negative, complaining, and it just goes nowhere. So I would say that that's just as important as, say, who you hang around with personally, is who you hang around at work for 40 hours a week.
Yeah, well, like God, I see everyone at the business more than I see my family. So like I'm there so often, and we speak to each other so much. It's just, yeah, that point I mentioned around like friends, like that does go for your family, that does go for your business culture, or the business that you're working at as well. That, again, who you surround yourself with, and that negativity, it can be like a cancer, and it can then grow and then affect other people as well. So it's something you definitely got to be super conscious of. But in closing out, Billy, what's something that people don't know about you that might be a bit of a fun fact? I probably don't even know it either, so I'm pretty keen to hear this.
Oh, you might have heard this one before, but I'm an old heavy metal fan. Okay. So I used to, back in my early 20s, I had the long hair. I used to get one haircut a year in my early 20s. So I had the long hair, black clothes. I used to go to
we're going to need a photo for that on the podcast. I reckon we're going to drop that in the notes.
Pre-smartphone days. So fortunately, there's not much evidence.
Yeah.
But I used to go to a lot of metal gigs, and even my now wife, we met in the early days of Tinder.
Yeah.
And it was like, in the early days of Tinder, it linked to your Facebook, and it used to present you with people who had similar likes. Yeah. And so when my wife came up, it said similar likes, Deftones and Slayer.
Kidding.
That's how we went on the first dates. We went to a few gigs early on, and we went to before we had kids, we went to a 3-day heavy metal festival in France.
Wow, that's classic.
Like a camping one. Yeah.
That's classic. Awesome. So I guess meant to be, That's it. Meant to be. The old algorithms back in the day on Facebook and Tinder, just, there you go, mate. That's funny. That's good. Well, I can tell you, Billy, I didn't know that. So it's
good. There you go. Learn something new every day.
Now I've just got this sort of Billy with long hair in my mind. So I'm just trying to figure out.
It wasn't a good look. It wasn't a good look.
Well, that's, each to their own. So, no, all good, mate. Well, we might close out there, guys. So appreciate everyone that is taking the time to listen. If you're getting value out of it, 5 stars on Spotify and Apple. Of course, today was just a bit of an intro to Billy. On the upcoming podcast, we're going to start deep diving into, some more meaty topics. Some ones we've discussed last year, legislation, government's always changing things. There's a lot of new areas and changes that are always happening in our industry. And I think we're going to do a podcast coming up on Trump, and in terms of just what's going on there, and he's throwing his weight around a lot. So there's a lot to talk about with that in terms of the flow-on effects to markets. And I don't know, Billy, you getting any questions about Trump from clients? I certainly am.
Pretty much every review meeting now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's everyone's.
What should we change our investments, or all those sorts of questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I've had that question so often. So we're going to do a podcast on Trump. But if there's any others, guys, you can always reach out. Let us know what you want to hear more about. And as I said, 5 stars Spotify and Apple if you're getting value out of it. We do a weekly newsletter that you can subscribe to, and then most importantly, if you want to chat to any of the financial advisors in the business, you can jump on the website and you can book in a free 15-minute call where we can actually discuss your personal situation and whether or not financial advice might be needed for you. Appreciate your time, Billy, and looking forward to spending a lot more time with you on the Winners Playbook into the future over the next 12 months.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks.